Alright guys, so this is a video that I've been dying to make. It's been 2 weeks since the release of God of War Ragnarok. Now, I beat it about 4 or 5 days after I got it. But, I just 100%ed it yesterday. I saved the very last trophy for beating... spoilers, obviously. I saved the very last trophy for beating Gna because I didn't realize that Brock's funeral was essentially the actual ending. And I got annoyed because I actually didn't technically save the last trophy for beating Gna. Apparently I hadn't gotten all the relics yet, so I had to go and buy the last 3 relics from Lunda. You know what? It is what it is. Life sucks. But I just want to talk about God of War in my opinion, God of War Ragnarok specifically. Now, the entire time that I was playing the game, I was comparing it to my memory of God of War 2018. Because I remember that game being extremely difficult, extremely well made, all of these things. But then I realized almost everything I thought about 2018 was wrong. Not the story, obviously. But the controls. See, and the annoyingness of people. See, I thought, God of War, when I was playing Ragnarok, Freya would constantly tell me what to do during puzzles. Mimir would tell me what to do during puzzles. They would tell me to use my shield. And I remember thinking to myself, God, why won't anybody just shut up? I feel like I'm just constantly getting backseat gamed by these NPCs. It was getting on my nerves. So I went back to play this game after I 100%ed it, and I realized Atreus was doing the exact same thing. Atreus was also backseat gaming, but I was less annoyed when Atreus did it for some reason. When Atreus told me the answer to a puzzle, I wasn't annoyed. And I think it's maybe the way that he says it. Alright, so I'm in the beginning of the game, because I just restarted it. I'm maybe an hour in. And one of the earliest puzzles is that you just have to bring down this bridge and, freeze it with your axe so that Atreus can go across. And when Atreus goes up, he says, maybe we can knock down this bridge. And the reason why I think it didn't annoy me was the fact that, it felt pretty realistic. Atreus was trying to prove himself to Kratos. He's trying to prove that he can do this, so he's going to try to be helpful. Even though I already knew the answer to the puzzle, it was nice that it felt like Atreus was trying to help. Then I look back on when I was playing Ragnarok, and during one of the post-Ragnarok side quests, you help Freya destroy the things that she remembers from Odin. Destroy the things that she had during the wedding ceremony, gifts from Odin, and you have to go there and help her. And every time we walked into an area that was a slight puzzle, she would just go immediately. You didn't even get a second to try to figure out the puzzle. Maybe you should burn down those brambles. Maybe you should go do this. It might be a good idea if you go do that. Or Mimir would try to give me advice on how the puzzle goes. And I'm like, can you guys stop? I'm Kratos. Literally, I've been solving puzzles since God of War 1. I don't need to hear Atreus and Freya giving me advice on a puzzle I haven't even gotten a chance to look at yet. If you guys remember, the God of War puzzles were always really hard. God of War 2, God of War 3, they all had really complicated puzzles. It was usually not that many, but the ones that were hard were really fudging hard. None of the puzzles in God of War 2018 or Ragnarok are difficult. Sometimes you might need to, maybe you didn't get the right angle on something, or you didn't see where the answer to the puzzle was, so, maybe that's just you being blind. I know that happened to me a couple times. and that might happen. But I was never like, fudge, what do I do? I'm so dumbfounded. That only happened to me once, and it was a side quest where I just didn't see that you can climb. There was this giant shield that you have to move, and I didn't see that you could climb it. And apparently, because I watched my friend play Ragnarok as well, and Freya told him to climb the shield. I don't remember getting that hint, but I also remember when he played it, that Freya waited a long time to tell him. He already tried like 5 different things before Freya was like, maybe we can climb the shield. Which is how it should be. I went into the settings trying to see if maybe there was a way for me to shut off advice. And I saw one that was like, extend the time you get for puzzles. So I thought that maybe that would maybe shut up Freya or something. That's not what it does. All it does is make timed puzzles give you a little bit more leeway so that you have a little bit longer time to do the timed puzzle. But besides that, because obviously you have to start off a video when you're reviewing something, I like to start off videos with the negatives. I like to say all the bad things first before I get into the positives. So therefore, I'm going to continue with the bad things. Glitches. Mostly graphical glitches, but it's not perfectly optimized. There are a lot of situations where someone will grab something and they'll very clearly not be grabbing it. Their hand will be like 2 inches away from what they're grabbing. And I remember that not being the case in God of War 2018. I'm like, that never happened that I can remember in 2018. But it also might have just been that I wasn't paying nearly as much attention back then, because I went back to play it, and right in the opening section, the very beginning, Kratos grabs the giant tree, and his hands are not touching the tree. Well, his right hand, at least, wasn't touching the tree. I had this one issue in Alfheim, which issue is the wrong word, but in Alfheim, there is this area where you have to climb to free the second giant jellyfish thing, and there's a rock that you have to destroy before you can climb across it. I destroyed the rock. I climbed across it, but when I came back to get the collectibles that I missed, the rock was there again. But I could still climb it. So instead, Kratos was just phasing through this rock for this one section. Now, once again, that's a graphical glitch. Not that big of a deal, but interesting, I gotta go over all the bads. Now, one actual problem that I had in the game that was a glitch was sometimes Freya would just stop following me. Sometimes after I climbed a wall, or sometimes, when I open a door, Freya would just stop following me. And I wouldn't notice until I got to the puzzle where I needed Freya, and so I would press square. I'm like, Freya, shoot the damn thing. And she wouldn't shoot. And I'm like, where did Freya go? Now, there's a fix for it. If you open another door, or you go through like a little tunnel that Freya follows you through, or if you hop on like a boat, or if you hop on a wolf, then, Freya comes back. But that gets really irritating, because I'll get to a section that's decently out of the way, realize I didn't have Freya anymore, and have to run back and go get her. Now, I have 2 more problems to talk about in the game. Which, by the way, that Freya issue, it only happened to me maybe 3 times, and I played the game for like 61 hours. So, I wouldn't call it a huge issue. Just something of note. But I have 2 more problems with the game. 1, post Ragnarok, you can't play as Atreus anymore. I really, really liked Atreus' gameplay. I was hoping that after Ragnarok ended, we'd be able to swap between Kratos or Atreus and, play around as either of them. But no. You really just have to enjoy Atreus for when you got him, because he's real temporary. You only play as him like 4 times? 4 or 5 times in the whole game, and each section's like 20 to 40 minutes long? That's not cool. How are you going to introduce Atreus' gameplay, which in my opinion was actually better than Kratos' gameplay, and then only let me play with him for a total of like 5 or 6 hours out of this fudging 60-hour game? Now, I'm not saying the whole game is 60. I'm not saying that the main story is 60 hours. The main story is like, honestly, like 20. Maybe a little more than 20 hours. But, you know, if you're going to 100% it, it might take you like 40 to 50. It took me 61 because I really couldn't figure out where the last things in Alfheim were. I spent a really long time trying to figure it out. And then there was this other thing that I don't know if it was a glitch or if that's how it was supposed to be. But I was in the crater in Vanaheim, and there was this section I need to go to fight the last dragon. Now, to get there, you have to go to this ogre island, and after you kill the ogre, there is a broken tree with one of those red things that you can use to jump across. It wouldn't work. A matter of fact, there was just something real weird about it. Eventually, after I did everything else in the crater, came back, tried doing it for genuinely 3.5 hours, trying to figure out how to get to this dragon. I gave up, and I went to go do other Vanaheim side quests. When I came back, Freya, as soon as I spawned in, was like, "Whoa, what's that?" And the tree changed. The tree shape changed a little bit, and it allowed me to jump across. So I'm assuming that was done on purpose. But if it was done on purpose, why was there no indicator? Why wasn't Freya like, maybe we should come back to this at another time? Something like that. If the game's gonna handhold you over the easiest puzzles, like break a little thing so that the bridge stays down, then maybe they should tell you when something giant like, yo, this entire section of the game is unavailable until you leave and come back. But the last problem I have with this game, because all these other ones, they're not nitpicks. They are important, except for the graphical glitches. I consider those nitpicks. But the last one is an actual problem, in my opinion, and that is how short the last section of the game is. After you get Draupnir, it's basically over. There's one little section again where it's Atreus. Then you go to Ragnarok. Ragnarok itself is like maybe an hour worth of gameplay. Maybe like 2.5 hours, 3 at the most, if you like to take your time. I'm pretty sure I completed all of Ragnarok, like the actual Ragnarok section of the game, in, I don't know, maybe an hour or two. At maybe an hour and a half, actually. That's not very long, and there's a lot that needs to get done. You show up at Ragnarok, the elves start attacking, the elves' tower gets destroyed. You decide you want to go fight the war machines. The Helheim tower gets destroyed. You continue trying to fight the war machines. Angrboda shows up and helps you out with Fenrir. Sindri shows up, and he's like, I don't have an army. All I need is myself. I'm not about to force these dwarves to die for a war they don't believe in. You have to but Kratos convinces, what's her name? Thrud, that we're on her side. We get into Asgard. We fight Thor. Then we fight Odin. Then Ragnarok showed up. Ragnarok goes to attack the heart of the heart of Asgard, and you have to fudging dip out through Angrboda's portal. This whole thing was extremely short, though. That's a lot. That sounds like, to me, like 5 to 7 hours worth of gameplay. And I think the first half of it is the shortest. The first half of it is like 30 minutes. The other hour is mostly just 2 boss fights. But the first half of it is literally you show up at the war, the temples get destroyed, you destroy the war machines. That is it. And I personally feel like that's complete fudging bullshit. Because that should have been way more stretched out. That didn't feel like a war. That felt like a bunch of kids playing with snowballs. None of it really felt like it mattered. Afterwards, in the side, in the After Ragnarok and the side missions, they're like, I mean, the elves did fight together at Ragnarok. They're really going to remember that. And they're going to be like, and I'm just like, yeah, they're really going to remember those 10 minutes that they spent fighting at Ragnarok. That they're really going to remember that. I'll tell you what. It got me mad. I'm not going to lie. That actually upset me how short it was. Even though it was extremely well done, the story is very, very good. That really, really irked me. But now that we're done with the bad, let's move on to the good. And oh my god, is this game good. At first, I thought it was pretty good. Compared it back to 2018, it's washes 2018. Absolutely washes it. So, you start off the game, you're Kratos and Atreus. You get home, Thor shows up, and he's trying to talk big against Kratos. Then Odin shows up, starts talking like a mob boss. Then you fight Thor, and it's like, it's so cool. This is so fudging cool. Then, you realize all of Midgard's frozen over, so the Lake of the Nine is now a ice skating rink of the Nine. So you move around, you move around there, you realize some areas are off, and you're like, when I came into this game, I was thinking to myself, what are they going to do to make all of these areas I've already been through interesting? I don't know what they could possibly do. Freeze it over and completely change the terrain. Not what I was thinking. I don't know how they made a very familiar area, an area that I grew to love, completely foreign to me. And that is the biggest compliment that I could possibly give a game. That they made an area I've already traversed completely different. I know Spider-Man kind of did the same thing with Miles Morales, where they just made it snowy, but at least things were aesthetically different. It wasn't the same thing. I still felt like I was in New York, but everything was more technology based, so it felt different without actually having to change the terrain. But in God of War, chef's kiss. You ran away from Freya. It turns out Atreus has been seeking out all of the other hidden, the giant temples, the prophecies. He reads out all the prophecies. I find it weird that Atreus thought that Kratos didn't know he was gonna die. Kratos was right behind Atreus at the end of the game when they read the prophecy. There was a very clear image of Kratos dead. So I don't know why Atreus didn't think that Kratos knew that. You find out that Sindri was helping Atreus out this entire time. The stave around your campsite gets broken, so you guys start hanging out at Sindri's house. Brock and Sindri are all cool. You go to find Tyr. Now, I did think the Tyr section was a little short, but that made the reveal so much better. You go to Svartalheim, you find Tyr, and it feels really easy. He's just kind of in a mine. You check 3 different sections of the mines, and boom, he's there in the third one. It felt really easy. He's all scared. You're like, oh damn, what happened to Tyr? He's supposed to be a god of war. He's looking like a loser right now. He doesn't fight anymore. He runs away from conflict. He tries to, help everyone out verbally instead of actually fighting. Then, you get further in. And you start helping people. You start helping the dwarves. You find Durlin. Atreus gets mad at Kratos and actually runs away to Asgard, which was so ballsy. It's insane. He really was just like, you know what? I'll take my chances with the All-Father. So he goes there, and I really like the mask section, although, you know how you always want something you know that you can't have, and sometimes you can't have it because it will never be as satisfying as if you did, because it could never be as satisfying. That's how I feel when it comes to looking into this crack, man. Like, I wanted to see what's in the crack. But I know it would never satisfy me. I know whatever the answer is, it could never suffice. Imagine he looked in there and it was fucking God and Jesus just chilling up there. They're the true gods of the God of War universe. We also find some interesting power scaling tidbits in this game. When Mimir asks Kratos if he had different powers back in Greece, and Kratos is like, yeah. And Mimir's like, well, why don't you ever try using them? And he's like, trust me, I've tried many times. They don't work here. They do not work in Norse mythology. And I'm just like, that's so weird, because like the Blades of Chaos work. So it's clear that at least some of the things from Greece still work. So I am actually curious on what would work and what wouldn't work. I wonder if that implies that just the tangible items work. So, so maybe like the Medusa head wouldn't work. Maybe his wings fell off. But things like, the Blades of Olympus or the Devil's scythes, maybe those things would work. And maybe Kratos just kind of left those things behind. Or maybe it really is just the Blades of Chaos. That those blades are special in a way that other things aren't. That they are literally tethered. Which, to be fair, in God of War 2018, it is straight up said that they are tethered to Kratos. And that's why they still work in Norse mythology. But I am curious because, like, even Athena shows up, and Athena is dead, but her soul is somehow in Helheim. Zeus's soul is also somehow in Helheim. So to some extent, the Greek stuff does translate over to the Norse stuff, and I find that really interesting. So as the game continues, you're blasting your way through it. You're having a good time. You start finding more and more about it. You meet Thrud. You realize that Thrud is the best God of War character to ever exist besides Kratos. Can't beat Kratos. I love Thrud, and I wish we got more from Thrud. And I'm pretty sure the next game is going to focus heavily on Atreus, Angrboda, and maybe Thrud. Maybe. Or maybe Thrud will have her own side game. But I was also a little disappointed that after the game was over and you go to Jotunheim, there's nothing really to do with Angrboda. She shows you a few of her prophecies, and that's pretty much it. The only thing in Jotunheim is the flowers for the 9 realms in bloom. But there's nothing real special there. Now let's get to the intense stuff. Atreus is in Asgard. They go to find the Fates. I don't remember what the Fates are called here. The Nords, that's it. They go to find the Nords. The Nords are like, Heimdall's gonna kill Atreus. Kratos is like, no, I don't think so. Completely ignoring the fact that the Nords are basically like, it's gonna happen because you act the way that you act and you never change. So he's like, whatever. If Heimdall dies and it makes me a bad person, then that is what it is. So he goes and gets Draupnir, this ring that constantly multiplies, and forges it with a spear by the lady in the lake. We find out that Brock is dead. Now, actually, we already found that out, but Kratos and Brock find out that Brock is actually already dead. He has only 3/4 of his soul, and the most important part of his soul, his direction, is already in the light of Alfheim. It is also stated that when you are missing your direction, you never get to the light of Alfheim. There is no heaven or hell for those who lost that part of their soul, which makes the next part really sad. Atreus comes back to Kratos, mask in hand. Kratos has Draupnir. He's already killed Heimdall. And we find out that Tyr is actually Odin. And the way we find that out is Brock sniffed it out from the very beginning. Brock thought that it was weird that Tyr had a way to Asgard and did not say anything. He slaps the mask out of Tyr's hand, and Tyr stabs him, revealing to be Odin, and Brock dies. Officially, the best male character besides Kratos to come out of God of War dies unceremoniously with a stab to the chest. And man, it hurt. It really, really hurt. When I saw that, I had to just stop for a minute. I sat there and I just stared at my screen because I didn't know what to say. This man that we met in God of War 1 who is fudging kicking a giant horse-looking thing and, curses up a storm and, is in fights with his brother, who we slowly gain an appreciation for, to the point where in Ragnarok, Kratos has an actual respect for him. He straight up tells Sindri, he's like, no, I want Brock to go with me to see the lady. It really, really hurt. It impacted me more than I thought it would. I never thought that I cared about Brock. I never thought to myself, I really care about Brock. I think Brock's a good guy. I did, but I had to wait until that moment for me to realize that I did. For me to finally understand that, I miss him. I want him back. They didn't have to take Brock away. And Sindri gets mad at Atreus because Atreus has kind of taken everything from Sindri. He's in his house. Sindri has always fixed up his stuff. He protected Atreus. He made sure Atreus was always safe. And in the end, he loses his own brother. And he has nothing. That was really all he had, was his brother. And I feel for him. I really, really feel for him at that point. Of course, he still agrees to fight back at Ragnarok because even though he blames Atreus, rightfully, he understands that it is not fully Atreus' fault. It is definitely also Odin's fault. And so he's going to punish Odin. And, we get to the war. At the end of it, Atreus seals Odin into one of the orbs that the giants sealed themselves into. And he gives it to Freya and is like, it should be your decision what to do with him. And Sindri just comes up, snatches out of her hand, and fucking smashes it. Smashes his soul. I don't know if his soul has an afterlife after it comes out of that orb, but I hope it doesn't. I hope it's limbo. for him. And at first I was thinking to myself, like, wait, that was Freya's choice. You just took that choice away from Freya, who's been punished by Odin for so long. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, Sindri also deserves it. Even though not as much as Freya, because Odin really did take everything Freya had, Freya still made her choices. Yes, he took away the Vanir. Yes, he slaughtered her people. But she not chose that life, but went along with it. And fuck. I still think about it, man. After Ragnarok, when I was doing all the side quests, and I needed to upgrade my axe, or I needed to get new armor, and I had to go to Lunda, and I didn't get to hear Brock and Lunda's little conversations that they have with one another, I felt sad every time. Every single time. I went there, and I'm just like, fuck, I forgot. Brock is gone. All we have left is Lunda, and I like Lunda. But I like Brock more. I had some more I wanted to say about the game, but that just made me really sad. I was gonna live stream me playing New Game Plus for the game, but there is no New Game Plus. I hope that they add it like they did the previous God of War game, but there's no dice. So maybe I'll play New Game Plus on the old God of War game. I'll think about it. But this is all I've had to say. Thank you all for watching, and solidarity for Brock.